Welcome back to the Olive Grove, the place where we dig deep into all sorts of fascinating topics.
That's right.
And today,
Right.
we're going to be focusing on Isaiah chapter 50
Yes.
from the complete Jewish Bible.
That's the one translated straight from Hebrew into English.
Yeah, so
This
this is going to be pretty cool.
It is.
to
I
start
think
with that.
this chapter's got some really vivid prophecies about Yeshua, who you might know as Jesus,
Yeah.
as the suffering servant.
Yeah, for those who are unfamiliar, Yeshua is the Hebrew name for Jesus.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
the first time I read Isaiah 50, the imagery was so powerful it almost knocked me off my feet.
Yeah. It's pretty intense.
But before we get swept away,
Right.
let's start with verses 1 through 3.
Okay.
Where God explains why his people were exiled. And it's not a legal contract or unpaid debts.
No.
It's something deeper.
It's about sin.
Okay.
Their actions have consequences, and what's fascinating here is that God specifically addresses the younger generation, those in exile who would eventually be let out.
Interesting.
Why do you think that is?
It makes me think about how sometimes it takes a fresh perspective, a generation removed from the problem
Yeah,
to really see a way forward, like they're less stuck in the old ways of thinking.
exactly. And it foreshadows how later, when Yeshua arrived,
Yeah.
many in Israel didn't recognize him.
Hmm.
Just like the darkness that descended during the crucifixion, many missed the call for repentance.
Yeah, there's this parallel between the Israelites in exile and humanity's need for redemption.
Definitely.
But how do we get from exile to redemption?
Good question.
Well, into Yeshua.
Yeshua, the suffering servant in verses 4 and 5,
Right.
he possesses God's wisdom, this intimate knowledge of how to bring us back to him.
And you have to remember, even knowing the suffering he would face,
Yeah.
Yeshua willingly chose this path.
Wow.
To understand the depth of that choice, imagine knowing exactly how painful a surgery will be.
But still choosing it because you know it's the only way to heal.
Okay, so verses 6 through 8. Don't shy away from that pain either.
No, they don't.
We see vivid descriptions of the torment Yeshua would endure. Being struck, his beard plucked, the insults being spat upon, it's all there, laid bare.
It's rough.
It's hard to read, honestly.
It is.
But,
But this passage isn't just about suffering.
okay.
It's also about God's unwavering support.
Mm.
The text says, God will help me, pointing toward the resurrection, the
Yeah.
ultimate vindication of the servant.
Right.
Even when Yeshua faces trial, the text reminds us that God is the ultimate judge.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is a good place
It is.
to pause for a second
Yeah.
and invite our listeners to join the My Christian Space community.
Yes, definitely.
It's a wonderful place to connect with others on this journey of faith
Uh-huh.
and explore these themes more deeply. We'd love to have you.
Absolutely. And for those who feel called to make a real difference in the lives of others, consider supporting Enduring Freedom Ministries.
Great ministry.
Their goal is to establish a much-needed food pantry in Jerusalem, Israel.
Oh, that's great.
This pantry will provide essential nourishment to those struggling, and you can be a part of that.
That's wonderful.
Every donation, no matter the size, helps bring this vision to life.
Yeah. So back to Isaiah 50.
Back to Isaiah 50.
Verses 9 through 11 present a stark contrast. Those who condemn the servant, clinging to their own understanding,
Yes.
and those who fear God, choosing to listen to his servant.
Right. It's like a fork in the road.
The text compares those who condemn to worn-out clothes.
Uh-huh.
Their arguments are threadbare, ultimately powerless against God's truth.
It's like trying to argue with the sunrise.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to happen whether you agree with it or not.
But those who choose to trust God, they find true wisdom.
Yes.
It's not about blind faith.
Right.
It's about choosing to walk with God, even when surrounded by darkness, knowing he is with us.
That's powerful.
There's a powerful message here for us today.
Absolutely.
Do we condemn and cling to our own limited understanding? Or do we choose to trust in God's wisdom, even when it's hard?
That's the question.
It's a choice with eternal consequences.
It really is.
So-
Yeah. As we delve deeper into Isaiah 50, one thing that truly resonates with me is the sheer resilience of Yeshua. Even in the face of such adversity, his commitment to his mission never wavered.
It's almost like watching a masterclass in handling pressure.
It really is.
You see, in verses 6 through 8, we get this incredibly raw and visceral description of the humiliation and physical pain Yeshua endured.
Right.
But woven throughout those verses is this unwavering strength, this incredible determination.
Exactly. It's almost as if he's saying, bring it on. I know my purpose. I know where I'm going. And that's where the idea of vindication comes in.
Vindication.
It's not simply about enduring suffering.
Yeah.
It's about knowing that ultimately righteousness will prevail.
So it's not just that justice is served, but that it's recognized, that it's made clear for all to see.
Precisely. And that vindication comes from God, the ultimate judge.
Okay.
It's a powerful reminder that even when things seem bleak, even when we can't see the forest for the trees, we can trust in God's timing and his perfect judgment.
Okay, so I've got suffering, we've got vindication.
Right.
But then verses 9 through 11 throw us a bit of a curveball.
Yeah.
It's like we're suddenly presented with a choice.
Yeah.
Condemnation or trust.
Yes.
It's almost like a fork in the road.
And it's a choice with eternal consequences.
Oh, wow.
The text contrasts those who choose to condemn the servant, clinging to their own limited understanding, with those who choose to fear God and listen to his servant.
There's a line that always stands out to me. Those who kindle a fire for light find trouble for themselves. It's almost like they're trying to create their own light, their own truth, instead of trusting in the true source of light, which is God.
It highlights the futility of trying to oppose God's plan of rejecting the message of redemption offered through Yeshua.
Now, there's a word that gets thrown around a lot.
It does.
Can you unpack that a bit for us?
Sure.
What does redemption actually mean in this context?
Of course, in this context, redemption refers to the idea of being bought back, of being freed from the bondage of sin. It's about restoration, reconciliation with God.
So it's not just about being forgiven.
Right.
It's about being brought back into right relationship with God.
Yes, exactly. And that right relationship comes through accepting the sacrifice of Yeshua, through acknowledging him as the bridge between us and God. It's through him that we find true freedom.
Now, on the flip side of those who condemn, we have those who choose trust.
Yeah.
They're the ones who find true wisdom, right?
Yes.
They're able to walk even in darkness, knowing that God is with them.
That's the beauty of faith, isn't it?
Yeah.
It allows us to see beyond our present circumstances, to find hope even amidst suffering, because we trust in God's goodness and his ultimate plan.
Yeah.
It's like having a compass that always points true north, even when we're lost in the wilderness.
Speaking of finding our way, this whole chapter is like a masterclass in resilience, in finding strength through faith.
It is.
It's almost like a blueprint for navigating those inevitable storms of life.
Absolutely. And it's a message that's as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago.
That's true.
We all face challenges. We all experience suffering in different ways.
Yeah, we do.
But Isaiah 50 reminds us that we're not alone in those struggles.
Right.
God is with us, offering his strength and guidance.
It's also a powerful call to action, wouldn't you say?
Definitely.
To choose trust over fear, to embrace the message of redemption offered through Yeshua.
Yes.
It's not just about passive belief.
Right.
It's about actively choosing to align ourselves with God's will.
Without a doubt, it's a challenge to examine our own hearts, to ask ourselves, which path am I choosing? Am I clinging to condemnation and judgment, or am I embracing trust and forgiveness?
Wow.
It's a question worth pondering.
As we wrap up our exploration of Isaiah 50, one thing that keeps coming back to me is the idea that suffering doesn't have to be pointless. And in fact, when we view it through the lens of faith, it can become a catalyst for incredible growth and transformation.
That's a profound insight. We often try to avoid suffering at all costs.
Right.
But Isaiah 50 challenges us to see it differently, to view it as an opportunity to draw closer to God, to glean valuable lessons, and to refine our character.
It's definitely a tough concept to grasp,
It is.
especially when we're in the midst of pain.
Right.
But Isaiah 50 offers us a powerful example in Yeshua,
Yes.
who willingly embraced suffering as part of his mission to redeem humanity.
And even as he suffered, Yeshua never lost sight of his ultimate purpose.
Yeah.
He remains steadfast in his trust in God's plan, knowing that vindication would come. There's a deep lesson for us there.
It's so easy to get caught up in the pain and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
We forget that God is with us working all things for good.
It's in those moments when we feel lost and alone that we need to cling to the promise of God's presence. We need to remember that we're not alone in our struggles.
And that's where community plays such a vital role.
Absolutely.
Having people around us who can offer support, encouragement, and a listening ear can make all the difference in the world.
It's like having a safety net when you're walking a tightrope.
Yeah, and My Christian Space community is a beautiful example of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a place where people can come together to share their journeys, to learn from each other,
Yeah.
and to find strength in shared faith.
It's a beautiful thing.
For our listeners who haven't yet joined, I encourage you to check out My Christian Space.
Yes, definitely.
You can find a link in the show notes.
And do that.
It's a wonderful resource for connecting with other believers and delving deeper into these important topics.
And if you're feeling led to support a truly impactful cause,
Oh, yeah.
consider donating to Enduring Freedom Ministries.
Great ministry.
They're working to establish a much-needed food pantry in Jerusalem, Israel. It's a beautiful initiative that aims to provide essential nourishment to those who are struggling. You can find more information about their mission and how to contribute in the show notes.
Now, before we wrap up our deep dive, I want to bring us back to a key theme that's woven throughout this entire chapter:
Okay.
the importance of listening to God's voice.
Yes. Isaiah 50 opens with God asking, "Why, when I called, did nobody answer?"
Right?
It's a question that challenges us to examine our own hearts and our willingness to truly hear what God is saying.
In a world overflowing with distractions and competing voices, it can be so easy to tune out God's whispers, those gentle nudges he gives us.
It really can.
It takes intentionality, a conscious effort to create space for stillness and silence, to cultivate the habit of listening.
And it's not always easy.
Right.
Sometimes God's message pushes us beyond our comfort zones, challenges our preconceived notions, and calls us to step out in faith.
But it's in those moments of stretching and growing that we truly discover our potential and experience the transformative power of God's grace. It's like a seed pushing through the darkness to reach the light.
So as we conclude our exploration of Isaiah chapter 50, let's carry with us this challenge.
Okay.
To listen attentively to God's voice, to trust in his plan even when it's difficult, and to find strength in knowing that we're never alone on this journey.
Beautifully said. And for our listeners who want to continue exploring these themes, be sure to subscribe to the Olive Grove Podcast on YouTube.
Yeah.
We release new episodes regularly filled with insightful conversations just like this one.
And don't forget to visit the My Christian Space website. Not only can you find early access to our episodes there, but you can also connect with a vibrant community of believers and engage in deeper discussions about faith.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Isaiah 50. We hope you found it enriching and encouraging. Until next time, may you walk in faith, hope, and love.
Shalom.